Good evening, everybody. My name's Sherry Claire, and I'm pleased to be part of tonight's webinar about the 5 stages of radical forgiveness with Colin Tipping. We also have a special guest, Katie Klein, who is a professional photographer and artist. Colin will introduce her later in the program. We'll begin in just a few moments, but I want to go over just a few questions that come up during the presentation. Please enter them in the chat box to the right. We'll get to as many as possible during the question and answer session once the presentation is over. And please keep them to questions only and avoid side conversations. It's really distracting to those that are watching the presentation. One last thing, we use a service from Google called Google Hangouts. And we have over 400 people on this webinar, and unfortunately we can't control their service. What we can offer are a few suggestions to make sure you have the best experience possible. So if you experience any clipping or buffering where your sound goes on your computer, especially your email and any backup programs that you might have. And if possible, it's best if you're connected to the internet with a cable and not wireless. Also, as soon as the webinar is over, you'll receive an email with a link for the replay, and it will be good for a full 72 hours. So that's all for now, Colin. We're ready to begin, so just give me a moment to start your PowerPoint presentation.
Hi, I'm Colin Tipping, creator of the healing modality known as radical forgiveness. So welcome to the webinar. You may or may not have heard of radical forgiveness, but anyway, what I want to do today in this webinar is to explain how it works, who needs it, and how they can benefit from it. Also, why it's so powerful, and in what sense it is so much more than the type of forgiveness we normally talk about and assume to be the only kind there is. Then you'll understand what makes it so radical. I'll do my best to answer all those questions in a moment. We'll also have a Q&A session at the end, so if you don't get these questions answered immediately, you can ask for more clarification then. Believe me, you sometimes learn more during the Q&A session than the main part, so don't jump off too early. But I also want to talk to you about an upcoming workshop come project that involves integrating photography, artwork, and creative expression into the radical forgiveness process. I'm very excited about it, and I feel sure you will be too once you know how it all fits together and deepens the person's radical forgiveness experience. It's a great deal of fun too, even though that's not the primary purpose. Adding the creative element allows for a more profound integration of the radical forgiveness experience itself, especially during the 5th and final stage of the process. Let me explain. Radical forgiveness involves going through 5 separate stages, the first 3 of which are more or less the same as in conventional forgiveness. All the tools we've developed over the years to facilitate the radical forgiveness process take the person through these 5 stages, and they are as follows. The first one is obvious. It's telling the story. What happened? Who did what to whom? And who got damaged? This needs to be the actual victim story, without any excuses being made for the perpetrator and no psychological or spiritual interpretations of what happened. The person says it or writes it exactly as he or she experienced it at the time, with all the pain and suffering endured fully expressed. Which brings us to the next step, which is to allow oneself to feel the feelings without censure or judgment. Now, this is a very important part of the process which a lot of people try to skip. Some spiritual people even deliberately pass on this step, claiming that spiritual people shouldn't allow themselves to feel negative feelings. Well, I think that's a total nonsense and nothing more than denial of what's there. Most likely, they are frightened of their own feelings and make spirituality their excuse for backing away from them. I call it doing a spiritual bypass. But the fact is, you just cannot heal what you don't feel, so you need to feel the feelings. Moreover, there's no such thing as a negative or positive feeling. It's just a feeling. We're spiritual beings having a human experience, and feeling emotions is the essential part of that experience. Why else would we have a body? Now, before I go to the next step, let me make a distinction here between pain and suffering. Pain is pain and has to be felt and acknowledged. There's no getting around that. Suffering, on the other hand, is optional. It can be reduced to nothing if we jettison what it is that fuels the suffering. Now, we call this collapsing the story, and in fact that's stage number 3. It's a matter of bringing the story down to what is real as opposed to imaginary, that part often accounting for about 90% of the story, as well as stripping out all the erroneous assumptions and spurious assessments that were made at the time. We might also look at whether we had unrealistic expectations of the person, taking away the judgments we were too quick to make, and so on. We would also allow ourselves to walk in the other person's shoes for a while, in order to understand why that person did what they did, and then to exercise some compassion, mercy, and understanding. Now, this is about as far as conventional forgiveness can go. It really cannot count as true forgiveness for most people because there remains an underlying belief that in spite of everything we've just said, the belief that something wrong was done to us is the truth. Well, it is not. Which brings me to the 4th stage, which we call the radical forgiveness reframe, in which we open up to the possibility that nothing wrong was done to us at all. It was what our higher self wanted and may even had a hand in creating in order to have that particular human experience, for whatever reason. To balance out some karma, perhaps. To learn something specific that it was in the soul's interest to learn and understand, maybe. To fulfill a soul contract made before incarnating, perhaps. You know, whatever. We don't know the reasons why we create these circumstances that offer opportunities to learn and grow as spiritual beings, but we all know deep down that there are no accidents and everything happens for a reason, don't we? Well, if that's true, then things don't so much happen to us as for us, right? Look, I know this sounds crazy, and it is. At least it is to our rational minds. It makes no sense at all. But here's the thing. It makes perfect sense to our spiritual intelligence, and that's what matters. This is the intelligence of the soul, or higher self if you prefer to call it that. Now here's where the tools come in. I mentioned earlier that we have developed a load of tools and processes over the years that make radical forgiveness work. In fact, what we have discovered is that it doesn't work without them. It's by using these tools that we tap into our spiritual intelligence, which again is that part of us that is connected to universal intelligence. If we try to do it in our heads, it just doesn't work, because the mind steps in and poo-poos the whole idea. It just doesn't get it. But your soul does, and the universe gets it too, and starts moving energy around in such a way as to rearrange the situation causing the distress to evaporate. It seems like magic, but it isn't. It's how energy works when you become open to seeing it this way. Now, about these tools, what are they? What form are they in? Paper or virtual? How many are there and how difficult are they to use? Do they really work? When and where would you want to use them? Then there are the special radical forgiveness processes you can do that help you shift the energy around the story and bring you right to the reframe, which is where you come to see the underlying perfection in the situation. So again, what are these processes? Can you do them on your own, or do you need a facilitator? Are they scary? Are they hypnotic? Can they be dangerous? Do you need to believe in the theory of radical forgiveness for them to work? And are they likely to offend my religious beliefs? Well, I could spend another hour or so talking about all the tools we have at our disposal. They range from simple worksheets to a game and even a 3-hour ceremony. But actually, I want to skip this and talk more about what happens in stage number 5, since that has a bearing on the workshop project I spoke about earlier that is happening on April the 24th to the 26th. So if you don't mind, I'm going to leave the conversation about the tools and the processes for now, with the intention of dealing with the whole topic in a more comprehensive way in a free lecture I'm doing in 3 weeks' time in Atlanta on April the 23rd to be precise, just before the workshop on the Friday evening, Saturday and Sunday, right after I come back from doing a big weekend workshop in Peru. I will devote most of that lecture to the tools, but there will also be an opportunity to experience at least one of the processes. So if you can come to it, arrive with something you want to forgive so that you can feel the benefit. I'll also be doing a book signing that evening too. The whole thing starts at 7 p.m, so I hope you can make it. If not, well, we will be videoing the lecture part and we'll make that available later. So now let me talk about stage number 5. This is what we call the integration stage. It's where we do something physical and sometimes creative in order to integrate the reframe, or new story if you will, into the cellular structure of the body. Bruce Lipton, in his book The Biology of Belief, scientifically showed that the energy generated by beliefs and other strong ideas about reality are contained in every cell of our body as actual physical matter, crystals in fact. And these can be very toxic to us, depending what those beliefs are. So this phase is about uninstalling the old program, that is to say the victim story and all its associated beliefs, and, to use a computer analogy, installing the new updated version, the enlightened story. Now you'll want that new one to be permanent as well. And here I'm going to stretch the analogy a bit further by saying you need to save it to your hard drive, which is, of course, your body. Your body is your communication system for accessing spiritual intelligence, so that's why it's important. One method we use a lot in our workshops is breathwork. SATORI breath, we call it. SATORI is a Japanese word for awakening or insight. SATORI breathwork is done lying on your back and involves breathing with full awareness in a circular pattern. In other words, you consciously breathe in a manner that has no pause between the in-breath and the out-breath. Carefully selected music is played, rather loudly, throughout the whole process. You breathe for 40 to 60 minutes through an open mouth, sometimes long and deep into the abdomen, and at other times fast and shallow into the upper chest. This oxygenates the body to such an extent that the body releases the energy of the old story from its cells and integrates the new one at the subconscious level. Suppressed and repressed emotion that has crystallized into energy particles within the cells also gets released. The feelings may be expressed as pure emotion, such as sadness, anger, or despair, unattached to any memory associated with them. On the other hand, there may be no conscious recall of anything. For each person and in each breathing session, the experience is different, as well as impossible to predict. But the healing happens anyway, no matter what. Now, there's more about this in chapter 25 of my Radical Forgiveness book, but now I want to come on to another powerful way to integrate the energy shift that you will have achieved as the result of doing the Radical Forgiveness process up to stage 4. And it's allowing yourself to indulge in free creative expression with art materials. So this is what this particular project is all about. Over the weekend, Sherry Claire, one of our most senior coaches and experienced teachers, will facilitate a workshop called The Power of Radical Forgiveness, up to and including stage 4. using a number of those tools and processes I have mentioned. One in particular, which we have found to be amazingly effective and dovetails nicely into what comes next. This is when Katie Klein, photographer and artist, will, for stage number 5, engage the workshop participants in a freewheeling session of pure creative expression, using a whole variety of art material and media. It's not about painting pretty pictures, though, and you don't have to be good at art. Let me stress that. It's simply about getting emotions and thoughts out on paper. Sometimes they'll look anything but pretty. The participants are simply told to create something that describes their experience of having come from a place of victimhood to feeling totally free. Through doing this, they integrate everything that they have experienced during the main part of the workshop with Sherry, thereby completing the 5 stages. Katie will photograph the whole proceedings, so each person has a record of where they were at the beginning of the workshop and how they ended up. When people do the radical forgiveness work over a whole weekend, the difference in their demeanor, their attitude, and overall energy is always striking. So to have it recorded photographically is to have it validated. After a workshop, people always look younger and more vibrant. Better than Botox, I heard one lady say one time. It's as if they've got themselves back, no longer carrying all that baggage. One of the most dramatic healings through art I have ever been privileged to witness and to participate in, actually, occurred at a retreat I did in England. One of the participants was a young woman with severe multiple sclerosis. Her body was weak and wasted, and her voice was hardly audible. Her throat chakra was virtually shut down. She had a husband and 2 children, but the marriage was basically non-existent, and she felt trapped, helpless, and hopeless. At one point, during a group art therapy session, she began to draw in a particularly unique fashion. She could not talk, but she kept drawing and drawing. It was hard to discern what she was drawing, but it became clear over time that she was using the medium as a way to regress herself and release old childhood pain. My wife and I sat there with her as she drew hour after hour, her drawings becoming more and more childlike as time went on. In addition to her pictures, occasionally she would scrawl phrases like "bad girl," "God doesn't love me," and other words indicating deep shame, guilt, and fear. Finally, she made a crude stick drawing of what she later was able to recall as childhood rape by an uncle. In this cathartic release, she was able to express in drawings what she had found impossible to say in words and sounds. Her throat chakra had shut down because of what she was forced to do with her mouth. Suddenly, art became an outlet for the memories and emotions that had remained repressed for many years. These memories and emotions were responsible for her illness. Well, 3 months after we got back from England, we received a letter from her saying that she had in fact left her husband, had gotten a new place to live, and had found a job. She was using her voice and asking for what she wanted, and she was finding that she had the power not only to ask, but also to receive. She had even started a support group for people with multiple sclerosis and was doing art therapy with them. So, to come back to the beginning, I posed the question of who needs it and why. What can you expect to gain from coming to this workshop? Quite frankly, people come to our workshops for all sorts of reasons, ranging from having a minor issue with a spouse or some other person they need to resolve, to needing to heal something really serious, like sexual abuse and incest. Basically, however, it's for anyone who feels a bit stuck and unable to find peace in or about some specific aspect of their lives, and wishes to be free of feeling like a victim. Bottom line, I guess, anyone who's in pain. Whatever problem you have, this workshop is the answer. I know that sounds glib, but it's true. We've proven over and over again that by using the tools that Sherry is going to take you through in this workshop, it really does work. We've been doing these workshops all around the world for almost 20 years now, and countless numbers of people have reported that their lives have changed dramatically as a result of attending one. And I can say this, it has saved many a marriage and enabled people to heal all manner of other relationships, both domestic and work-related. By doing the radical forgiveness process on people like ex-partners, workmates, siblings, kids, the government, the church, even God, and most often, and even more crucially, their parents, they find a measure of peace they never would have thought possible. Thanksgiving dinner is never the same afterwards, let me tell you. So, if you feel into your own heart right now, I bet you will find someone you need to make peace with, or a situation you can't seem to resolve by normal means. Whatever or whomever it may be, it weighs heavy on you, even if you don't realize it. By releasing it, you will be amazed at how much lighter you will feel. If you're still skeptical and not sure about whether to sign up or not, well, come to the free workshop the night before and make up your mind then, assuming, that is, that there are still spaces left at that time. You know, that's the risk in that strategy. But you'll get a chance to meet Sherry and Katie. That's when all resistance will melt away, I assure you. But if you want to absolutely make sure of getting a place on this one-of-a-kind workshop project, with Sherry facilitating the workshop from stage 1 to 4, and Katie doing the artwork for stage 5, click on the buy button right now. Okay, so I think this is the best time to open this up for questions and comments. And Sherry, I expect you may already have quite a lot from people who've been writing in as we've been going along. So what do you have?
Thanks so much, Colin. Great presentation. We have several questions, so we'll go ahead and begin. If you have any specific questions for Katie or me, go ahead and put them into the chat box. But one thing that you didn't mention, Colin, is the Radical Forgiveness Circle ceremony that you and Joanne are going to be doing as part. Can you go ahead and tell us about that?
I know, I'm so modest. Yeah, on Saturday afternoon, I will be running the Radical Forgiveness Circle ceremony, which is an amazing thing, an amazing experience for people, and it actually enables you to forgive yourself and everyone else in your life in a space of about 2.5 to 3 hours. And we've done this ceremony around the world many, many times. We've been doing it now for 15 years or more, with very large groups, with very small groups. It doesn't really matter. It's just an amazing thing. So that's a sort of a bonus, really. It comes in at the part of the workshop that Sherry's doing on the reframe. It helps to reframe people, their stories, whatever that story is. And also, one of the features of it anyway is that it's nonverbal. You don't actually have to share a story, so it's not threatening in any way. But there is a way in which it takes you through those 5 stages. So so that's all I need to say about that. I think, Sherry, just to know that I'll be doing it, and Joanne will be with me. We do it together. So that makes 3 of us that are doing this workshop. It's pretty good value, don't you think?
Yeah. I did get a really good question from a lady. I'm not going to go ahead and mention names just to keep people's privacy, but she says, my son's father has betrayed me over and over with his current partner. He has her and her family post things making fun of the things I tell him have happened to me. I cannot trust him and must stay away. How do I forgive and accept who he is if I may have to be in contact again?
Okay. All right, there's a number of things in this question here that we need to look at. If he's posting things that you say and makes fun of what you say, then stop saying them. Don't tell him things that he can make fun of. So that's the first thing I would say, that you have to take some control over this. Obviously, they are treating you in a way that makes you feel powerless, I would imagine. from what you're telling me, and so you have to find a way to interrupt that and to take your power back and to create some boundaries. But beyond that, what I'm reading into this is that you've been betrayed over and over by him and his partner. So my question would be to you to look and see how many times you've been betrayed in your whole life, and whether betrayal is something that happened to you as a child, and what is happening now is, in fact, being provided the opportunity to heal or forgive what happened to you as a child, which you saw at that time as a betrayal. So it could have been some way in which you were let down, your father promised you something, didn't come through, some sort of a thing where you were, where you felt let down and betrayed. So look back in your life to see if that happened. And it sounds to me as though you have a pattern of it, and also a pattern of being ignored. That's another thing that you might look at too, because where did I thought I heard something about being ignored, but maybe that was somebody else's question. But anyway, betrayal is the main one as far as I can see from the little that you told us, which is worth looking at. Now, what do you do with that? Well, just like anything that comes up in these sort of sessions, is that you get a forgiveness worksheet out, and you do a forgiveness worksheet on, in this case, you would do it on your ex. Presumably, it's an ex, it's your son's father anyway. So you do a worksheet on him, and as many worksheets as it takes to create a change in the situation, and one on his current partner as well, if she's implicated in the fun making and shaming, which apparently is what's going on, and see what difference it makes. So what you're going to learn if you come to the workshop is that it's the tools that make the difference. I can talk to you all night long about this, and it wouldn't make a lot of difference, but if you download a worksheet from the website and go through it and see if you can find out what the betrayal issues was from an early age, I think you're going to find it would make a difference right away, and the behavior would likely stop. Okay?
Great, thank you. Katie, this one is for you, and welcome, Katie. We're really pleased to have you join us tonight. Their question is, I don't like to do art, so what other things can I do for the integration step?
Well, let's see. It's not really about creating a likeness with art, and I think that many people have a story that they're not creative or that they're not an artist. It's not necessarily something that's nurtured as we're a child and we get older. Our creativity and our imagination is something that, you know, sometimes gets lost a bit, and it's scary as adults to create art sometimes. Well, this project experience with creating art, it's not really about creating a likeness. So most of the time we're using paint, but I've had people use charcoals or, you know, movement. One person even wore white clothing and put some paint on her clothing and used her body to make, you know, rolled on the paper and moved around to create art that way. It's just a way to get out of your head and move into your heart and really create in that way. What you're doing is you're moving energy, and you're integrating these changes that you've made, these energy shifts that you've made after you're doing your radical forgiveness work. So it's just a way to kind of integrate that into your mind, body, and spirit when creating this art. And in this workshop, we'll be doing it as a group. So it's really great to have that group energy. You know, we'll turn on music, and you know, you just use movement and flow. You're not trying to create a likeness, and you do not need to be an artist. It's probably better if you're not an artist, honestly. That way you're not in your head. You know, you're not trying to think about what you're going to create and what it's going to look like, and not trying to create a likeness of something. Instead, you can just really get into your feelings and into your heart and just create from there.
Can I come in there on
Yeah.
this one? You know, sometimes, you know, we think of painting as just, you know, a brush in hand and doing that, but we can also integrate music and movement into this. You know, if you're on the, you could be painting on the floor and rolling around in it if you're dressed in such a way that you could do that. But you can, you know, there's presumably, Katie, you'll have plenty of floor space available for people to move around on, so that they can dance with something. That's
Absolutely. Or
that's
even
artistic as
writing.
well. You know, I know Joanne, when she does this, she gets fabric and she'll, you know, dance around the room and just move. You know, and that's anything that you can do with your body as a creative expression. It doesn't have to be just painting.
Right. And there's no judgment at all. It's just whatever you feel inspired to do. Some people like to write. You could write a poem. You can just, it's just kind of expressing how you feel after you've experienced this amazing process. And most people feel peace, they feel lighter, they feel happy, they feel empowered. And the artwork is just a way to express how you feel and, you know, not think about it too much. Just free flow and let yourself loose. And, you know, it helps to kind of unlock your creativity too to do this. But yeah, you don't have to paint. You can do whatever kind of creative expression that you feel inspired to do.
Okay, thank you, Katie and Colin.
I noticed somebody has said, you know, oh, you're just promoting your workshop. Yes, we are promoting the workshop, but we're also teaching you the 5 stages of radical forgiveness. So you could be listening to this in Australia and still getting the information that you need about how the 5 stages, how you progress through these 5 stages. We happen to be just concentrating right now on stage number 5, which is integration, which generally speaking doesn't get talked about quite so much as the other 4 stages. So the other 4 stages we already mentioned, but this one is, as I said, is about stage number 5 and how you might do it for yourself. We talked about breath work, we talked about painting, we talked about music. So so it's unfair to say that all we're doing is promoting a workshop.
There's a question from a lady in India, and she actually got up very, very early at 5:30 a.m. her time to listen to the webinar, and she wants to know if you're coming there.
I wish I was. I don't have any plans to come there in the near future. I would love to do so. But to answer the question, though, there are ways that you can participate, just as you're participating in this one. We have Indian people come to the Miracles Workshop in India. Several times we've had Indian people come to that one. So did I say India? I said Switzerland.
Yeah, well, she's from India. And
yes, I know. What I'm saying is that that we've had several people from India come to the Swiss workshop.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think 2 or 3, or maybe even four times we've had people come. But then there's the online programs that we have that people can participate in from all around the world. So, but that's something you do on your own. But nevertheless, it is sort of very interactive. Have you got anything to add to that, Sherry?
Well, yeah, she asked a question about, she says that she's been doing the worksheets for several weeks now. I had a bad relationship with my grandma who raised me, and I suppose she wanted me to make up for the fact that her daughter, my mother's marriage, didn't work out.
Yeah. And
is that I'm doing the forgiveness sheets, but I'm still unwilling or skeptical about forgiving. What do you suggest? Do I continue to do the same worksheets?
Assuming that it's the radical forgiveness one, yes. Or you can go a little further and do an online program on your parents. So that goes a little deeper. It takes you 21 days actually to go through the program, which. But it doesn't matter about you being skeptical or even unwilling. If you do the work, if you use the tools, it seems to work anyway in spite of you. So don't judge yourself for being skeptical or unwilling. Just do the work anyway, and you may find that it will surprise you. And all of a sudden, one day you wake up and you feel, you know what, I don't feel that anymore. I don't feel angry anymore. I don't feel upset about what happened to their lives. So that's about all I can say, I think, isn't it?
Okay. I have a question here. I hear about forgiveness all the time, yet I don't know the real definition of forgiveness. I have no desire to hurt people who have hurt me. Does that mean I've forgiven them? And if so, why?
I guess, in terms of conventional or traditional forgiveness, that would be an indication that you have forgiven so far, in terms of that kind of definition. But in terms of radical forgiveness, no, it's no indication that you've forgiven. It's just that you're choosing not to, maybe choosing not to feel it. The definition, if you want a short, succinct definition of radical forgiveness, it's recognizing that nothing wrong ever happened and nothing wrong ever took place, so that you can come to a place of peace around it, just knowing that there was a divine purpose being served by what took place there. Even if you were being hurt or damaged in some way, that there was some reason why you needed that for your soul's growth. That's the definition of radical forgiveness. Now, you can find out more about it on the Radical Forgiveness website. That will take you deeper into that if you find that that's sounds a little crazy. In fact, I think I said earlier on that it was a crazy idea. From the point of view of how the mind reacts to that, because we can all think of exceptions, can't we? We can all say, oh, yeah, okay, well, everything happens for a reason. I can see that might happen, but what about this, or what about that? And so to the mind, it's very difficult to get a head around it. But what we do know, after having done this work now for 20 years or more, is that it really isn't the mind that does the work. In fact, the mind has to get out the way, ideally. It's what we call our spiritual intelligence that does the work. It's that part of us that is connected to spirit and knows the truth of why we're here, what we came in to do, what's the point of having this incarnation. And that part of us, which is not part of our conscious awareness, unfortunately, or at least not all the time. Sometimes we get a glimpse of it, but that's the part of us that really knows the truth. And I think what happens when we do these worksheets, and it took me a while to understand this, it took me a while to understand why these worksheets were so productive, why they actually work so well. I couldn't imagine what was going on until I realized that it was the worksheet that was actually connecting us to our spiritual self, or our spiritual intelligence. And it was through the worksheet that we were connecting in with what was really true, instead of the illusion of us having been damaged. And once we get that at some deep level, not at the level of mind, once we get that, then that's when the peace comes, and you feel different. And not only that, the situation itself tends to resolve itself, because it was only there as a teaching opportunity anyway in the first place. So once you get it, it disappears because there's no further use for it.
Okay.
I don't know whether that answered the questions or not.
Yeah, I think so. and I think you answer relatives, husbands, friends, co-workers. Should I do worksheets for each betrayal with the follow-up question of what is the cause of these betrayals?
Actually, you cut out a little bit for me. Was that was a workmate?
No, she said that she's been betrayed by relatives, husbands, friends, co-workers.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I see the question. Yeah. Well, if you want to know what your wound is, and the belief that you made up about as a result of your wound, then look at what is turning on in your life. So if you're being betrayed by all these people, then clearly you have been wounded, or you came in with a wound to heal. I don't know. You could have come in with a past life issue. That betrayal is your lesson in this lifetime for some reason, and we don't know what it is, and you probably will never know what it is, but just by the evidence of what is showing up in your life, betrayal is what you're dealing with in this lifetime. So what you've got to recognize is that all these people, whether they're co-workers or partners or whomever it is that are betraying you, they are showing you what it is that you need to heal and what you need to work through. And so you, instead of making them the villains and you feeling victimized, just give thanks to them. In your own mind, you don't actually have to tell them that. In your mind, you say, well, God, thanks. They are giving me opportunities to heal whatever betrayal that I have deep down inside me, or sense of betrayal. And as you feel the gratitude for that, then the whole thing, then it will stop. And when it stops, you'll know that you've healed it. But you don't have to know what it is. You don't have to try to search out unless you know. I mean, it may be that you know that you have an early childhood betrayal. Well, if that's it, then that could be it. But the basic idea of radical forgiveness is that you forgive whatever is in front of you now, and that works its way back automatically through the energy field, and it will take care of it. You're very lucky to have all these people in your life who's giving you an opportunity to see what's up for you.
We often don't. Okay, there's a question here about how much is the
seminar? Can you answer that? I haven't got it off the top of my head.
I'm sorry, Colin, you cut out. Could you say that again?
Yeah, you were cutting out for me too. Yeah, can you answer that one about the money?
Well, the lecture that you're doing on Thursday night is free, and that's optional. But if you have the opportunity to go and see Colin live, definitely take advantage of it. The seminar, that's Friday night, all day Saturday, and happen, but we're doing a special price of $75 off at $222 for the people that are joining us on the seminar. And I put a little link in the pop-ins window. If you want to go over there, you can take a look and find out some more information about it. So it's going to include all 5 stages plus the radical forgiveness ceremony, so it's a great deal. So thank you for asking that question. I have another question here. How do we find out what we really need to forgive? I don't feel like I have anything to forgive, but I know that's not true.
Oh dear, how do we find out? I guess you ask. Ask to be shown. I don't know. You know, until something crops up in your life, and sometimes it can be something very small that seems insignificant, but if you have a reaction to it that's somewhat disproportionate to the actual event itself, then you know that that's showing you that you have something bigger deep down that you haven't been looking at. So the example I usually give is if you had been betrayed as a child or young person, and you haven't really dealt with that one yet, and you go and have an appointment with somebody for a lunch or something like that, and the person doesn't turn up and leaves you hanging there, and you feel disproportionately angry about it, then instead of just being mad at the person, you think to yourself, well, this is obviously an opportunity for me to forgive somebody or for something, because I'm having a disproportionate reaction to it. In other words, I'm being triggered. Something deep in me is being triggered by this event. If I can't get beyond it, if I don't just treat it as, oh well, he didn't turn up. So that's one of the ways that you can know whether you have something to forgive or not. But you know, forgiveness is not always about something big. It can be something that happened 2 minutes ago. Something I said on this webinar. It can be anything, big or small. And I think we have the misconception that forgiveness is only about healing some big or heavy-duty wound from the past. It's not. It's dealing with life as it presents itself to you and trying to see the perfection in it immediately instead of going straight to victim land, which is what we usually do.
Yeah, I often say, look at what's happening right now, and if you have a lot of energy around it, then there's something there that has to be forgiven. You don't need to know what it is.
Right. Oh, by the way, with the Indian lady, somebody's just reminded me you might consider asking her if she thought about working with a coach. We do have a coach in India. She could work by phone and fax with anybody in any part of the world, of course, but we do have a certified coach in India. I think she's in Hyderabad, isn't she? Sherry, do you recall?
Yeah, she is.
I think we have 2 or 3. But anyway, if you go to our website, or any of you who feel that you would benefit from coaching, I forgot to mention that, we have lots and lots of coaches, and they're all listed by country on our website. So you go to the website and find the tab that says Find a Coach, and it will tell you who is in what state in America, and then what country in the world, who is active and who is willing to take a client. So, and you can get some really, really high quality people by doing that.
And Katie is actually training to be a coach. Katie, how is your training going?
It's going great, and just doing this project experience too that I've been doing, I've learned so much. It's amazing, and I find that as I open up and connect with people, we all heal each other, because really we all have the same human experience, and so it's just really amazing. I'm very excited about it all.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great service, and it's really a way of making a difference in the world for sure. And you know, you're going to be one of many wonderful people out there doing great things for people. There's a question here from Kip. Can I take that one?
Yeah, please.
Would you say that forgiveness is more often than not a gradual process or a series of giving up ill feelings rather than one big release? It can be any one of those things. It can be gradual, but often it comes as an aha, a sort of an insight. It drops in somehow when you suddenly realize, and it may be as a result of doing the actual worksheet, you suddenly realize that nothing wrong ever happened, and it can be a flash, just like that. Or it can be something that you do, that it comes sort of over a period of time. It's like you wake up one morning and you suddenly feel it's not there anymore. I don't feel angry anymore. I don't feel sad anymore. It's all over. I've done it. And so just let it be whatever it wants to be. And the main thing is to use the worksheets. The worksheets work very quickly. They do tend to have from beginning to end. It takes about 20-30 minutes, I suppose, to do a worksheet once you've done a few of them. And there's usually quite a big difference in how you feel at the end as to how you felt at the beginning. And so something has happened right there and then. But then it might take a few nights going through a dream cycle for it to actually integrate and for it to totally anchor in. All right.
Okay, we have a gentleman who's been asking several questions, so let me see if I can get these put all together. I have two.
Is this Fred? Are you talking about Fred?
Pardon me?
Are you talking about Fred?
Yes.
I've got 3 of his questions here, so I'll do it rather than you try to do it. Unless you want me to read it out. Do you want to read it out so everybody else hears it?
Yeah, let me go ahead and read them out.
Yeah, okay.
I have 2 parts of my personality, one that needs to be in control and one that needs to feel my feelings, and I can't seem to integrate both, though I do own both now. I do not trust living in my feelings or avoiding them, so I am distrustful and not able to celebrate. I am angry with my if I trust my feelings either.
Okay. The one thing I didn't get was I'm angry at.
I'm angry with my father for rejecting me for being in my feelings, yet I do not trust my feelings either.
Oh, okay. Well, you've just answered your question. You've answered all three questions there, because it's a question of you dealing with that wound where your father shamed you or made it not okay for you to have feelings. So that's the root of all of that, and that's, you're aware of your feelings on one side of you, but the other side of you is scared stiff of them, so you have to try to control them in order to appease your father or please him or get his approval or something. But it seems to me you answered your own question by saying, your father made it wrong for you to have feelings. Do you agree, Sari?
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's one of the programs that we have is a 21-day program for forgiving your parents.
Yeah.
And I hear from people all the time, they'll send me an email about how all of a sudden they realize that they're living their life as a 45-year-old adult based on what somebody said to them when they were 5 years old.
Right, right. And we all do it. I mean, it's not like it's just one or two people. All of us do it. And that's why we're all, walking around looking like we're somewhat dysfunctional, because we are adults, but we're living out of a childhood wound. And so fortunately, the remedy is simple once you know what it is. And the remedy is just to do a worksheet on your father and forgive him for doing that to you. He was only doing what he thought was right, but it obviously wounded you, and you're living it out. So do the work and get over it quickly.
Oh, this is a really interesting one, and I want to hear your answer on this. Can a person experience pain without experiencing hurt?
Well, I think this one goes back to my definition of pain versus suffering. Oftentimes the hurt is the suffering. I'll say it again, the pain is that part that we can't brush off. It happened, and it was painful and hurtful. Okay, so in that sense, there's probably not much difference between pain and hurt. But where the distinction comes in is where the hurt is as a result of all the things that we make up about what happened. So somebody does something to us, and we then make up that it must be something wrong with us, that it was my fault that I did that, or I expected too much, or I was not good enough for him, or all of those things. That's where the hurt oftentimes is most potent. Unfortunately, that's the hurt that you can get rid of pretty damn quickly once you realize that it isn't true. It just isn't true. And so you have to confront yourself and say, what am I making up about what happened that is just not true? And as soon as you find it out, you say, I'm going to give it up. We have a worksheet called the centrifuge. And it's analogous to the idea that you put vegetables, green vegetables, in the top of a juicer, and you spin it, and the juice comes out, and the other stuff comes out the other side. So you're doing the same thing with your story. You put your story in the centrifuge, give it a damn good spin, say, oh, that bit's true, but the other piece isn't. So I'll throw that away and I'll deal with the pain. It really is as simple as that. And then, of course, you go to the next step and do the reframe on what actually happened. But as far as your question is concerned, it's always a question, is this pain, am I entitled to this pain? Is it actually because of of the truth of what took place, or am I just making up a whole load of stuff in order to suffer more?
Okay, I have a question here. Somebody wants to know if we'll be doing SATORI breathing in the upcoming workshop. And
you can answer that one.
No, the SATORI breathwork isn't part of this workshop. This workshop is based on the three-letter process. The SATORI breathwork is in workshop. And Colin and Joanne actually have a miracles workshop coming up in May. And as of this morning, we only have 2 spots left in that workshop. So if that's something you're interested in, I would say act on it right away, because that workshop is always sold out and we always have a waiting list. Yeah. Anything else you want to say about that?
Only that I might have 2 people. I'm having a private appointment with someone, 2 people on Saturday, a couple that might come. Anyway, that's between you and I. Linda asks if I'm coming to Chicago. The answer is no. You're going to have to come to me, Linda, I'm afraid. I can't be everywhere at once. We're going to South Africa in the next couple of weeks. I mean, South America, the next couple of weeks.
Well, Linda wants to know if you're coming to Chicago, and if you don't want to go, I'll go, because I have children that live there. So it would give me a wonderful excuse to go see them.
They are, Linda. Okay. You can be their sponsor.
Yeah. Yeah, so she can be my sponsor. So, Linda, send me an email at support@radicalforgiveness.com, and we'll talk about it.
And I can assure you, Sherry does a damn good workshop.
Okay, so let's go ahead and take one more question, and because it's almost the top of the hour, and we always try to be on time. Can this process be applied to someone else's behavior that we don't agree with?
Yeah, no. The answer is no. You can only do forgiveness for yourself. Okay, but if you've got someone in your life that's behaving in such a way as objectionable, then you have some things that you can do. First of all, you can do a radical acceptance worksheet, which is a good spiritual practice to accept someone the way they are. And when you do, it's often that the behavior stops. Or you can do a forgiveness worksheet on them in the sense that their behavior is making you feel bad. So you're doing the forgiveness for you, not in order to change him, if it is a him. You cannot change other people. You can only change yourself. So the only thing that you can really do at any meaningful level is to accept them the way they are. But on the other hand, if the behavior is a real problem, then you have to put distance between you and that person, or create some sort of boundary where that behavior is unacceptable to you and you're not willing to put up with it, and so on and so forth. So you have to do it from a point of view of what can you do to you or for you to make this better. Without, you just can't change other people to make them act how you want them to act. That just doesn't work at all. In fact, it'll only make everything worse. I know it's tough, and there is always that tendency to want to change somebody. If I love him enough, he'll change. That's what a lot of women do when they get married. He's not perfect, but if I love him enough, he'll change. Well, they quickly learn that never works. Will the May workshop be good for the beginners? No, it's good for anybody. That's from Tatiana. Did you see that one, Sharon?
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
Okay. Well, Katie, thank you so much for participating with us tonight. I'm looking forward to seeing you in Atlanta at the end of the month. And Colin, it's always a pleasure doing these things with you, and I'll talk with you in the morning.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's always fun. I love doing these things, and the questions have all been good, and I hope we answered as many as we could. Okay. So.
Yeah, if any questions didn't get answered, go ahead and send an email to support@radicalforgiveness.com, and we'll answer as many of the other ones that we can.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Very good. Thanks for coming on the call, and for those of you who have come back on the recorded call, maybe you would have liked to have put a question to me as well. So if you missed it, at least you got the recording. So God bless everybody, and thank you, Katie. Thank you, Sherry, and see you next time.
Okay.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you, Sherry.